going the distance with local sports. This is the xSports Network.
Financial advisor Scott Beasley knows time spent with family is everything. As a founder of Beasley Wealth Management, his mission is to give clients the freedom to enjoy time with family without the burden of financial concerns. A local of Lawrenceburg, Scott deeply values building relationships with clients, ensuring they make informed decisions concerning asset management, tax planning, and retirement planning. Offering a free initial consultation, Beasley Wealth Management helps clients pursue their aspirations with confidence.
Since opening our doors in 1904, Builtwell Bank has existed to be the local economic engine for the communities we serve. No matter if you're buying a car, saving for retirement, or finally buying that forever home, Builtwell Bank is here to help. From personal checking and savings accounts to a full suite of business and commercial banking with treasury management services, we'll make sure you'll have a dedicated Builtwell banker that understands your unique needs and stands by you every step of the way. No matter where you are in Tennessee or Northwest Georgia, there's likely a Builtwell Bank location nearby. Come see us and let our dedicated financial team help you with all of your banking needs. Member FDIC.
Shop McMaster's Home Gallery for furniture, appliances, and more. And shop quality, shop convenience, shop service, shop local. A family-owned business with a long history of serving the region. We're a one-stop home furnishings destination. We feature brands you know, competitively priced, backed by professional installation and service. You can trust that we'll take good care of you before and after the sale. For your home, shop smart. Shop McMaster's Home Gallery today.
All right, and welcome to another conversation with xSports. Michael Marks here with Loretto High School volleyball coach Nick Quillen. Nick, it's dead period, so thank you for taking some time out of your short break to come talk to us, get us kind of a little heads up of what's coming into 2025, looking back at 2024 and a little bit of everything. So I kind of want to take what do you do during your summer dead period? Because it's not very long. You get 2 weeks, the last week of June, first week of July, and as soon as that's over, you got the season coming right around the corner. So what's your dead period looking like?
Well, dead period, I try to do as little as possible just because of everything. Once, like you said, once July hits, we hit the ground running. That's our season starts. Mm-hmm. But June, we do some skills stuff in June. I run a few like middle school camps and stuff that I'll go do. Obviously, there's a lot of administrative side, planning for the fall. We're going to Vanderbilt camp actually next week, so trying to get all that planned out and things like that. So there's not really a time that I'm not doing anything, but during dead period, I try to do as little as possible, and usually that changes from volleyball to yard work.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, well, because your season ends usually around October, and then from then on, it's kind of just mulling over until the next season starts, because most of your players are multi-sport athletes, are going to basketball, going to softball, and then whatever they do in the summer. Mm-hmm. So looking back for you, what kind of grew your love for volleyball? When did you sort of realize that your love for the game?
So way back when I was in high school, I stopped playing basketball, and it just so happened that Kim Green was the coach at Loretto, and she was actually a PE teacher at South Lawrence, and she knew that I was pretty good with math, and so she asked me, would you want to be a manager, and you can do stats for me, help keep book, and I was like, I don't know anything about volleyball. She was like, well, you get a free period at the end of it. I was like, okay, count me in, I'll do it. And so I kept book for her. Like I said, just traveled, did everything, whatever I could for her. Then she left, and Dee Weatherwax now stepped in and took over. And so it kind of changed a little, that I was actually kind of helping run the drills once again. Still didn't really know a lot about, knew just enough to get by, but didn't know a lot. She was just like, throw the ball up, hit it at them, or toss it, or do whatever. And so I really started to like the sport, and then Ole Miss came and did a camp for us in the summer, and just so happened that they were losing a manager, and they were needing a manager, and so everybody kind of talked, and so I went for one visit to Ole Miss, and I was sold. I was like, I love it here. I was actually going to go to UT Knoxville just on academics.
Great place too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And so I went down there, and I loved it and learned a lot. Obviously college level SEC volleyball, like big step up, and obviously the sport itself has changed tremendously over the years, but was there for 6 years. Graduated, was like, okay, volleyball's over. I worked as a team lead at Target for a little while in Florence, and Samantha Childress was the coach, and she would actually have me come and kind of help run her tryouts a few times, but she's like, well, I'm stepping down. Would you want to coach? And I was just kind of like, well, never really thought about coaching, but yeah, absolutely, I'll step into it. And it just, from then on, it's all been about growing the sport, growing it at Loretto, growing it in general, and I love it. Like it's everything that I do pretty much revolves around volleyball. You can ask my daughter, my fiance, and luckily they're all bought in on it. So.
Yeah, that definitely helps. So your sister's with you on your coaching staff, and has she been with you the whole time?
She has, yes.
How important has she been to, I know when you get, say like an award for winning so many games, she always goes out there with you. Y'all have kind of been this team. How important has she been to the team's success?
Tremendously. And I think a lot of times that she doesn't get quite as much credit because she is assistant coach, as well as Julia Huntley, who came on this last year. But and she has a full-time job, so this is essentially a volunteer position for her. So she's doing two things, and so she makes a huge impact. One, for a while it was just the two of us, and so it was kind of that girl perspective. You have that helps out, but also it's fun coaching with your sibling. We fight about stuff, but it's one of those things that, we know each other well enough that we're like, that's a stupid idea. It's like, oh, okay, well then let's try something else. So it's easier. You're not worried about stepping on somebody's toes with decisions and things like that. So, but we don't argue that much, but we do really well about communicating and doing things the way we need to do them. And like I said, with Julia coming on, now we've got a former player that we actually coached. So we're kind of hitting on all these different places to hopefully translate that into our team. So
now a little bit of a personal question for you. So you've born and raised Loretto guy. You went to Loretto High School. How proud does that make you to be a coach of a team at Loretto High School that's able to sort of consistently bring in a district championship, a region championship, and even a couple of state championships now?
It's amazing. And like I said, when I took the job, it was to grow volleyball. And so like I said, I have a lot of thankfulness for those coaches that Kim Green and Dee Dee and even Samantha for all that they have done, and even all the way back to Deborah Ernest. She started the program in '78, so seeing where it has come, that was awesome. But then when I took it over, it was like, okay, I get to steer this now. What can I do to help grow this even more? And so if you look back to 2017 when I started, to now, it's not me, I may be the coach, but these girls, they're the ones that are bringing it all, back to Loretto. And so the fact that we have our own locker room now, we have obviously the banners, and we have multiple courts in the gym to use, all those things 10 years ago were almost laughable. So it's a big pride thing that I get to be where I was introduced to volleyball and all these other great sports. I played baseball, so getting to kind of be around all that stuff again is pretty awesome.
All right, so now let's talk a little rivalry right here. Okay. So your first year at Loretto was my first year at Loretto, and that was kind of when I started learning a little bit more about these rivalries within the county. And Summertown and Loretto volleyball, it's a big deal. Kind of talk about that rivalry and how much it's meant to really the growth of both of these schools, because since then, every year since 2017, either Loretto or Summertown has been in the state tournament. Most years, one of, if not both of you, are playing for the state tournament, or championship. How important has that rivalry been?
I think it's great, and you look at the rivalry, and a lot of times when people look at rivalry, they look at the negative side of it, and the smack talk, and all this other stuff. But how many, what doesn't matter what sport it is, but how many teams or whatever counties can say that they had two teams in the same county, in the same district, in the state championship, or even in the, Final Four, if you can look at it that far back. And so, that's awesome because, it's not always just like, oh, well, we're eventually going to see Summertown. No, we see Summertown 6 and 7 times in a year. And I know, and Coach Kelly probably would attest to this, like, we don't always want to see each other that many times, but at the same time, like, every single time we play each other, like, it's big.
Yeah.
Like, it's a big deal, both from a season standpoint, a district standpoint, but just a community standpoint. So it's pretty awesome. Like, it's really cool to have that rivalry in a place like this.
And okay, so let's talk about last year. Last year, you won the state championship, a 52-3 record. I mean, probably, if not the best season in volleyball history for Loretto. So 48 of the 55 wins were sweeps. The season as a whole, you won 131 sets, only lost 12. Most wins in a single season, the least amount of losses in the single season. You swept Lawrenceburg and Summertown every time you played them. But let's go to the state tournament. Okay, so it's the winners bracket championship. You win the first set against East Robertson. You lose the next two, and I believe you're down 23 to 17,
something like that. Yeah,
and you're thinking, oh no. This this great season. It wouldn't have come to an end if you lost that game, but then you're having to play in the losers bracket championship to get back to that game on Friday. Kind of tell me what your team really showed you right there, because I can just remember as a fan, I wasn't at the game, but I was listening to the game and thinking, oh no, it's about to happen again, but they pushed through. So
I love telling this story because I love talking about my seniors from this last year. So I had 4 seniors. Becca Heineman, Aubrey Ezel, J.C. Franklin, and Allie Weathers, and they were the epitome of what you want as a senior leader. They all led in their own way. Some were by what they did on the court, some were how they said things, some were things that really didn't have anything to do with volleyball. But they all did an amazing job of leading the team. And so we get into that set, and I don't know if it was my last time out or first, I don't remember, but I called a timeout, and I started talking like, look, like, we're backed in a corner, like, we don't want to go to the losers bracket, what do we need to do? And I don't remember which one it was, but one of them basically cut me off, and I just kind of backed up and was like, okay, let's do it. And they were all, we are not losing this. We've come too far. Just that spiel that you want to get, that a lot of times you get, but it's like, well, can you back it up? Yep. And they came out, and it was like a 7-0 run or something, or 9. I don't remember what it was, but we didn't lose a point. Yep. We went straight out, won that, and then went into the 5th set. And I think it was like 15-7 or 8 or something like that. So it was a little nerve-wracking at the time. Same thing. It was like, oh, man, we're right here. Like, what do we need to do to push through this? And they had their big outside that was killing us, and I think we were focusing too much on stopping her and doing all this other stuff instead of just play our ball. Do what we do best. And but once the seniors kind of stepped up there in that timeout, like, it was just like, it just flipped the switch, and that's a hard thing to do. You flip that switch, or you vocally flip that switch, but can you do it out on the floor? And they did. Like, it was amazing just to kind of sit back, and that's what you want as a coach. You want to be able to just stand back and let them do the work, and then you're there, tweak these little things. Yep. So super proud. Like, I tell everybody, like, that to me, that was more the state championship. Like, I know that it wasn't, and I know we still had to come in and win the state championship, but winning that game, like, that was the biggest match of the tournament, in my opinion.
And talking about that state championship game, so East Robertson went down to the losers bracket, won that game late Thursday night. What was y'all's confidence heading up? I don't know if y'all stayed in Murfreesboro or not Thursday night, but what was the confidence kind of heading into that game Friday afternoon?
So we wound up coming home. I'm one of those that if they can sleep in their own bed, like, we want to sleep in their own bed. And they changed it. In past, we've played it like 10 a.m., and it was 3 or 4 or something like that. So we came home. We got up the next morning and practiced, and I walked in the gym, and you could just feel the vibe. Like, all the girls were pumped up, they were ready to go, and it was early morning. A lot of times, early morning, they're kind of slow. They were ready, and we worked on some things too. Like, okay, what can we do against the outside? With just some little tweaks, but all in all, it was just that confidence. Like, it was like, okay, like we got that out of the way. We can't relax, but like. You made a statement by winning that, and so whenever they came back out, which we were late to the match because of traffic right around Rockville, and so we talk about we just showed up whenever we wanted to, but it's really not the case. But yeah, their confidence was there. They stepped out on the floor. There was no. I'm sure there was nerves, but it didn't look like it. Like it seemed like they were ready to go out there and take care of business. These seniors, they were so close the last 2 years, so like they wanted it. They wanted it really bad. So.
And how important are those previous years kind of leading up to this? Because, in the fall of 2023, you ran into that Sail Creek team that was incredible, really good team, and even the year before that with Summertown. How does, it hurts to bring home a silver plaque, but how much does, losing the state championship one year kind of help lead to the dominant team you had last year?
I think it's a big deal because especially some of those that were underclassmen that get to see that for the first time, they kind of get that under their belt because there's a lot of nerves with playing in the state tournament. And I know that, some of these girls, they're used to it, but it's the state tournament, we strive for that every year, but stepping out there, like it's a pretty big deal, and it's a gut check to step out there to play and to play your best and succeed in the state tournament. So I think, coming up short those 2 years, stinks. Like nobody wants to do that, but they're there. They're right there at that. So it's like, what can we do to get that little extra bit? To get to that gold ball. And, obviously it's not always just about you. It's about what other these teams that are coming back. So East Robertson, for example, we went 5 with them both times we played them last year, or 23. So we knew that they would be good. We didn't expect them to be as good as they were. And of course, Sail Creek coming back, Summertown was there. CSAS, who's there every now and then, we played them first round. They kind of surprised us. Yeah. I think that kind of surprised us a lot. But the fact that you're there, the fact that you get to that right there at that point, and you come up short, like it gives you that experience, but it gives you that fire. Like you're like, okay, we're right here. We've been here 2 times in a row. Like, what do we got to do to get that little extra inch?
Yeah, so. And sometimes, you can look at confidence as being a bit arrogant. Do you think, how did you kind of control that? And do you think, maybe losing those 2 years kind of made that more of just, confidence and we can do this,
mentality? It does. And I try to tell the girls that there's nothing wrong with going out there, playing your best, celebrating as loud as you can. It may appear to other teams that you're being arrogant, but you're not. You're out there, you're enjoying the game. You're enjoying it with your team. You're representing your school, and so we schedule a lot of games. Yep. A lot of it is we have our district, but then we're so close to Alabama. We play a lot down there. We go to the tournaments, and some of the tournaments you play 6 and 7 matches in a weekend. I think our first week last year we played like 12 matches in like a 6-day span. But we do that because. You almost want to get beat. You want to get beat by these better teams, so you know what it feels like. Yeah, and all right, this is what we didn't do well on, or they were really good at this. What can we do? Whether we face anybody like that again or not, what do we need to defend something like that? And so it's a big deal for them to lose that. Like I said, nobody wants to lose at that point. And it is kind of a gut punch when you get so close and then you don't get it, but obviously like state runner-ups, nothing to shy away from, and we just try to other than the seniors, they kind of stinks for them because they don't get that extra chance, but we try to look at everybody else like, okay, look, like we're right here, like what do we got to do to be a little bit better? So that's kind of this year we've got that target on our back now, so this year's a little bit different looking at it.
So talking about the 4 seniors, you emphasized how important they were. talk about what they kind of helped build at Loretto, and what they've kind of placed in and what that means for the future. All four finished with over 1,000 digs. Allie Weathers had over 1,000 kills. JC and Becca both finished with over 2,000 assists, and those four make up the top four spots for aces in school history. Kind of what foundation have they laid down for the future for Loretto volleyball?
I mean, I think it's one of those things that, it's great to lead by example. Sometimes you don't want just that, but these younger girls that are coming up, that it is almost like a role model situation, whether it's a year younger or this is a freshman coming in and they didn't get to play with these seniors. They've seen what they can do, and some of them, they strive for that. I see that in some of the ones that were freshmen and sophomores last year. I can already see their drive has increased. There's things that they are doing more of and doing better of because of people like them. And those four, they all did that. And two of them played multiple sports, and so the fact that people see that, okay, you can play multiple sports and still excel in any of them, really. Or the other two only played volleyball, so you have all these different perspectives, but at the end it's you can be a great teammate, you can put up numbers to help your team, which none of those four cared about the numbers. It's great to have it, it's that pride, but it's just one of those things that they show what you can do when hard work pays off, and that group as a general shows what your team can do when you have good leadership. And that was actually one thing I challenged my incoming seniors this year, because there's 8 of them, so there's a lot more of them that not that, hey, you got to follow these seniors, but look, there's more of you guys. How are you guys going to lead this team? Because there's so many of you. You always hear the too many chiefs. We don't want that. So what are we going to do to have that cohesion and lead this team with so many of them being seniors?
So how do you're losing 2 of your setters last year, you're losing an outside hitter, and you're losing a libero. How are you looking to fill those roles? Is it kind of next man up mentality? Is it going to be this early season is where we're kind of trying some things out? What do you do to maybe fill those spots in? Because it's hard to replace players like that, but do you maybe have that money ball kind of attitude? It's okay, well, these 2 players can almost give me what this player gave me.
Yeah, it's a lot of different things. And, like Allie, she played all 4 years. So it was a little bit harder to kind of work people in. But, there are, this freshman group that we've got coming in, there's a lot of them as well. And they're very athletic. And so, we're looking at, we're going to Vandy camp, we've got another camp, and then we always do the Summertown Smackdown. So we're going to use, a lot of that time to rotate some players in. We've already got some people stepping up. We kind of have some ideas of what we're going to do, but we joke every year. There's been years that halfway through the season we've said, all right, we're wiping the slate, let's try this. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So, we've tried to just explain to the team that, until October hits, it's all what can we do to make this a better team. And so I don't know. I mean, like I said, we have a pretty good idea on some of the positions, and we've got some new players come in that we're hoping will step up and do that. But there's some big shoes to fill, and it's just who's gonna work for it and earn it at that particular time. Yeah.
So, obviously you got the mini camp coming up in July, I believe 18th and 19th, the middle school camp coming up. Kind of talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we, when we had the new gym, we got 2 courts put in. So we technically have 3 courts we can run at one time now. And so that the big thing is we want to host a tournament. And so to kind of get our feet wet in the water, we're going to have a middle school play date, to where we're not playing in it. I can kind of run it, kind of get a vibe for how it works. So we're going to have a middle school play date on the 18th and 19th. That is going to be run similar to how Coach Kelly runs her Smackdown. It'll be a timer, and they'll play their starters best out of 3, and whatever time's left they can get people in. But we got teams from Alabama and the normal, which I guess you would call the district around here, but then also some Columbia area teams like Santa Fe, Eacock, some of those coming in. I think there's about 13 or 14 teams coming, and it's going to be, I think it's 1:30 to 9 on the Friday Friday, and then most of the day Saturday. We're going to have some food trucks coming, so it's a good time to kind of kick off volleyball season. You know, it's not high school ball, but it's something to kind of to get going, and we're excited for it just because, like I said, it's our first step towards, you know, hosting a bigger tournament or something like that.
All right. So what's some upcoming plans? What does the future of Loretto volleyball look like under Nick Quillen?
Well, you know, obviously we want to stay successful, and you know that every year is a new challenge, and that's the other thing that I talk to the teams every year. Like, just because we won state this last year, we could return the same exact team. It's a new season, so you don't know what other teams are going to have. You don't know what's going to happen with your team. So you know, more recent goals. You know, we want to get back there, but we've got to start smaller. You know, we want to you know, figure ourselves out, figure out where we're going. We know that target's going to be on our back. We know that people think because we graduated those 4 that we're going to be down. So there's all this adversity that we're going to have to get through, along with figuring out what we're going to do as a team. So that's kind of more, I guess, short-term goals. But you know, every year I want to have fun. You know, and you know, it's the group that we have this year has been fun so far, and last year's group was crazy fun. But you know, this year, like I said, you know, we've got a lot of seniors, we've got a lot of newbies coming in. So you know, sometimes that's, you know, you don't know how it's going to be with so many changes. But so far they've been fun, and like I said, you know, we're going to go to Vandy next week. Vandy just started their program back, so you know, we're excited for that, to kind of see what they're offering. We've been kind of in touch with them as far as our coaches association that we've started, so we're kind of trying to establish a little bit of relationship there. But we wanted to kind of get there. We've got Jason Arnold that coaches. He actually was at UNA for a little while and coaches club where I coach in Florence. He's going to come up and do a camp. Like I said, we've got the Summertown Smackdown. We're going to go to Summit for a scrimmage. So, you know, we're trying to do some different things. We'll go back to Knoxville for the tournament, huge tournament, biggest tournament. I was actually talking to their coach the other day that it's now like one of the most popular tournaments in the East Coast. Because
I saw last year when y'all went up there, it was, I think, 72 or 76 teams.
So
there's
they
a
push
ton
80
of schools.
teams every year, and they're everywhere. You know, Florida, South Carolina, Georgia. You know,
They usually have the big map up
Yes.
inside that shows where everybody's coming
So,
from. I always
you
thought
know,
that was
it's
cool.
a huge tournament. We're going to a tournament in Franklin that's usually got pretty high caliber teams. And then we always try to do some local ones, just so we got Muscle Shoals, and then we're going to go back to Creekwood, which we went to last year, which was a pretty good tournament. So, and then we're doing a lot of traveling this year. So we're going to Alabama, Madison County, Arab, Priceville, a lot of those that are Final Four in like 6A and 7A in Alabama. So we've got some challenges this year on our schedule, but you know, we're excited. Like I said, if it's a fun group, you know, that's if you have that fun first, you know, the rest ideally will come with it. You know, they just work better together. So we're excited for it.
All right. Well, Nick, thanks for taking some time out of your very busy schedule. I know to come up here and talk to us for a little bit. You know, the 2025 season for the Lady Mustangs opens up with the Summertown Smackdown. That's on August 1st and 2nd. We'll have those games here on the xSports Network. And the regular season kicks off August 18th at Lawrenceburg. Again, we'll have that game here on the xSports Network. Again, thanks for coming up here, and best of luck for the Lady Mustangs in 2025.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
This is the xSports Network.